What's going on? It's the Big Rig Bull Texas truck accident lawyer Reshard Alexander in the office today on a Thursday afternoon. It looks like Houston will be avoiding the hurricane, which is a great relief for us, Houstonians down here in the great state of Texas. However, Louisiana has already started flooding. The news reports don't look good. And it looks like they're probably going to get another 12 to 18 inches of rain, supposedly, when this hurricane makes landfall. As it relates to trucking news, the federal motor carrier safety regulations will likely be suspended for that area because of the state of emergency declared. And I think it mostly applies to those who are providing essential needs or essential services. Truckers that are providing essential needs or essential services for that particular area. I don't know how it's going to affect Texas in general, but this will be, I won't say it will be interesting to watch, because it should never be interesting to watch someone suffer. But, you know, I will keep my eye on, you know, the trucking news. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I don't have any plants in my office, which is weird. I know, because, you know, plants just do something for an office. It makes it a little bit more vibrant, I guess. So I have two plant pots, but I don't have any plants yet. But I ordered this like about a week or two before we left for San Antonio. I don't know if you can see it. It's a terrarium, which is pretty cool. What's going on? It's the Big Rig Bull Texas truck accident lawyer Reshard Alexander here again today on a Thursday afternoon. As we start episode 46, we're moving into another segment right now of the general requirements of hauling hazardous materials. Now, we're not covering air and water, which we could, but we're dealing with truck driving because I'm a Texas truck accident lawyer. However, I would like to reach out to my fellow West Virginia University alumni, as well as the University of Houston law alumni, or any attorneys, for that fact of the matter, who are located across the nation, who are, you know, relatively young attorneys like me, and you are dealing with a truck accident, or you are questioning, you know, how to handle it. Feel free to reach out to me. So let's get started. The driving of a commercial motor vehicle requires placarding of a hazardous material, and anytime there is a transportation of any quantity of a material listed as a select agent or toxin in 42 CFR Part 73. Okay, so for those situations, you will always need a hazardous material endorsement on your CDL. Okay, or commercial driver's license. When we're talking about shipping papers, hazardous materials shipments by highway require proper shipping papers. So it may have bill of lading, hazardous waste manifest, etc. Okay, the exceptions to accompanying shipping papers are if there's the limited quantity material. You remember we talked about limited quantity yesterday. 2, there's an ORMD material. Remember, that's the other regulated materials, and that this exception will be phased out, as I said before, January 1st, 2021. Number 3, if it's a Category B infectious substance, and you know, it's been prepared according to Section 173.199. And 4, if it falls into the materials of trade exception. If you remember the previous vlog from yesterday, we talked about materials of trade, like batteries and things of that nature. When it comes to record retention for hazardous materials, okay, so the shipper has to retain the records for hazardous material transportation for 2 years. They have to retain the records as the acceptance of the shipment by the initial carrier for 2 years. Okay. When it comes to the carrier's retention records, they have to retain it for 1 year, and that's after the material is first accepted. Okay. The date of acceptance must be included in the records, and for hazardous waste manifest, it has to be retained for 3 years. All right. Okay, so when we're talking about the listing of hazardous materials, this applies. Well, listing of hazardous materials on shipping papers. This applies when non-hazardous materials are listed on the shipping papers. So there are, basically 2 materials being shipped in that one load. One of them is non-hazardous and the other one is hazardous. First of all, if non-hazardous materials and hazardous materials are being shipped together, the hazardous materials have to be listed first on the shipping papers before any non-hazardous materials. Okay? And number 2, there has to be a listing in color that clearly contrasts with the entries for materials that are not subject to the hazardous material regulations. I mean, it's common speak. You have to be able to clearly differentiate between the non-hazardous materials and the hazardous materials on the shipping papers in color. And the third thing is that they must be listed with an X in the column captured HM. Okay, R can be labeled HM, but it has to be listed with an X, generally speaking. Identification of hazardous materials. So this is, it's a relatively simple topic, but when you're identifying hazardous materials, there are a few things that you need to have. Okay, number 1, you need to have the identification number of it. Number 2, you need to have the proper shipping name. Number 3, you need to have the hazard class or division number. Number 4, you have to have the subsidiary hazard class and division. And if you do have those, you need to have them in parentheses. They don't always have subsidiary hazard class and division numbers, but they do. You need to have them on there listed as in parentheses. Number 5, packing group. Remember, we talked about packing groups yesterday. 1, 2, and 3. Grade. Danger and whatnot. Number 6 is total quantity and unit of measurement. Now, when it comes to total quantity, it doesn't have to be listed if there is just residue. You're talking about cylinders or you're talking about bulk packaging. But generally speaking, you need to have the total quantity and the unit and a unit of measurement, whether it's like pounds or something like that, of how much is being transported of that hazardous material. The 7th thing is the number and type of packages. And the first 5 items must be in sequence. So there shouldn't be anything that's written in there to break any of that up. It should just be completely written out so that it can be clearly understood. Now, for the packing group, I just wanted to have list something that is not essential to list the packing group for hazardous material that is classified as household waste and is not subject to the EPA's hazardous waste regulations in 40 CFR 262.263. 262 and 263, I'm sorry. So 40 CFR 262 and 263. Okay. The last thing that I wanted to cover is special significance identification issues. So if a material is a hazardous substance, RQ must appear either before or after the basic description. And RQ can appear in place of the X. So there can be an X, but RQ can appear in the place of the X. Number 2, shipping papers for limited quantity exceptions. Remember, we talked about the limited quantity exceptions earlier. The shipping papers must have the words limited quantity or an abbreviation of LTD, QTY, limited quantity, must be entered in the basic description. All right. If this hazardous material is poisonous by inhalation, so you're dealing with poisonous by inhalation criteria. If it's a gas, it has to be labeled, as a poison, inhalation hazard, or toxic inhalation hazard, and the words zone, A, B, C, or D have to be listed on there as well. The same thing applies if you're dealing with liquids, but it's zone A or B instead of zone A, B, C, or D. If there's an elevated temperature material, it must be indicated in the shipper name, and hot, 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 must immediately precede the proper shipping name to identify that hazardous material. If it's a marine pollutant, if it's not listed, if the fact that it's a marine pollutant is not listed in the shipping name, then it must state such in the shipping description. Okay? And the last thing is special permit shipping. So if there's a special permit needed for this item to be shipped, it must be notated as DOT-SP, followed by the number issued for the special permit. And it must be a clear association with the description to which the permit applies. The only other thing that I could think of that we possibly need to cover was that you always want to have the date of acceptance, get the date of acceptance by the motor carrier. It should be in the shipper's retention records. And the other thing is that you always want to check the shipper's certification when you're dealing with any type of hazardous material, truck accident, or anything of that nature. So I hope this has been helpful to you. This is the Big Rig Bull, Texas truck accident lawyer Reshard Alexander, signing out for another day. Hope you have a blessed day, and let's hope that New Orleans people are safe and sound tomorrow. Keep them in your prayers. So I'll see you guys later. Take it easy.